Welcome to Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine. I'm your host, Jill Jardine, Master's in Counseling Psychology, longtime astrologer, psychic, healer, and yogi. You won't want to miss this special episode on cryptocurrency. My guest is SL369, back again to tell us what's happening with crypto. You want to find out what the scoop will be in mid-February, March, April, May, and forward in 2022. So stay tuned. Welcome to Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine, and welcome to the episode with my guest, SL369. SL is going to share her information on cryptocurrency. For those of you who are listening for the first time and have been under a rock in the crypto world, SL369 is a cryptocurrency clairvoyant who has been channeling visions about crypto coins since 2018. SL369 has an 80 to 85% accuracy with her crypto visions. SL stands for Starseed and Lightworker. The number 369 was inspired by Nikola Tesla's theory that these numbers are the key to the universe. SL369 shares her crypto visions on Telegram, Twitter, and her YouTube channel. SL369 has a very active Patreon site where she shares her crypto dreams and visions daily. Check it out at www.patreon.com/SL369crypto or her Twitter, twitter.com/cryptosl369. Check out her YouTube channel, SL369, and Telegram, t.me/SL369crypto. We're so excited to hear what's going to happen after the historic crash of crypto in January 2022 as crypto comes back to life and really takes off in March of 2022. Welcome, SL369. Great to have you back.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm very good. Here we are in mid-February, getting ready, putting our seatbelts on, hang on to your hat. We're in for a wild ride in the next few weeks.
Wild ride. So right now is February 14, so we have like 2 weeks left for this month.
Right.
Do you see any more like downturn?
Well, I don't see what we've seen in January, but it's going to be slow. It's almost like, as I've described before, we're coming out of neutral or reverse and going into first gear. We're really going to pick up speed in March after that new moon on March 2nd, which is also Ash Wednesday for those who follow the Catholic faith. So after March 2nd, we're going to see things really start to rally. And we're going to have a full moon on the 18th of March, right after St. Patrick's Day, again, for the Irish Catholics in the crowd. And we're going to really start seeing things move forward. Jupiter is getting its groove on in Pisces and harmonizing with Pluto and other planets that will start. Oh, and the nodes, of course, the nodes in the coming months, the nodes of the moon in Taurus and Scorpio.
So there is one Vedic astrologer predicted that, and also I think Susan as well, she predicted March 6th and March 8th, we might have a crash or correction. Do you see that based on your information?
Yeah, that's a possibility because the planet Uranus will be conjunct the moon in Taurus. So that can always indicate some erratic activity. So we may start seeing things go up. Then we have a little bit of a downward trend. And then I really think that it will probably rally when we get into the second half of March, especially when we switch into Aries around the 20th of March. That week of the 20th through the 26th should be really gangbusters, even into the following week.
So March, when will the rally begin? If March 6th and 8th, there is a crash.
Yeah, so we might see a really nice big gain around the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Then we'll have a little bit of a stalling out thanks to the erratic Uranian energy. But then there's something called a planetary war that's been going on in February. It wasn't happening in January, there's other complications with retrograde planets and a lot of Capricorn planets in January, which created that historic crash in crypto. But we have a planetary war between Mars and Venus. Mars is for men and Venus is where women come from, right? But they're traveling together very tightly for almost 2 months. This is unprecedented. They're always within a degree. So Venus wants to deliver the goods. Venus is really good with financial blessings, and Venus and Mars switch into the sign Aquarius on March 6th. So that could be the complication, as well as the moon in Taurus. That's going to create a challenging aspect. So the 6th, 7th, 8th, we're going to have that going on. But this Mars-Venus conjunction that goes on for the next couple months, some good, some bad. That's why we're seeing more martial activity and the threat of war, because Mars is the, warmonger. And then Venus is the peacekeeper and the lover. So we've got the fighter and the lover going together for the next 2 months. So again, they could be, it's what they call planetary war. So they mitigate each other. So if Venus was just full on galloping, it would be better. But, there's other things operating that are going to open up the playing field with the crypto, despite the planetary war with Venus and Mars, which is a bigger deal in Vedic astrology, not so much in Western.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, a lot of people has been concerning about the war, and they are curious, is there actually going to be, is Putin going to invade Ukraine?
Yeah, again, it's sort of like a flexing of muscle between the two countries. And I do think that like the U.S. has been asked to call the bluff, because the fact that we had the situation where they just kind of, stormed into Crimea and took it over in 2014, and the world just kind of stood by and let it happen, a little bit like the appeasement of Hitler, right, with Poland. I think that this is the time to call the bluff and say, no, we don't want that. The rest of the world, NATO, is not supporting this move. So, but I think it's going to be fisticuffs for a little while, and then there may be a back down.
So you said that March 6th to 8th, there'll be
Dicey.
Dicey. Are we talking about crash or
No, not a crash.
just a big correction?
A stall. Let's not call it a crash. Let's call it a slight correction.
Okay, that's good. Then, then from March 9 onward, the market will do better?
Yes. There's going to be recovery. I actually think there's an acceleration too. It's sort of like, I like the metaphor of being in first or second gear and then just shifting up to fifth. That's what we're going to see from the 20th of March through about early April. I'm just, as I've said in previous podcasts, I'm really trying to track when this crash of April will happen. And I think it might be around the 8th or 9th. The 9th of April is like a really weird day astrologically. There's a bunch of aspects that are challenging. And then we're going to have Mercury go into Taurus on the 10th, which will slow things down. And then we're running into the eclipse window. There's a eclipse on the 30th of April. So as I've said, it's good to kind of be very prudent as we get closer to eclipses, and maybe the market gets to the highest it is for this round around between the 8th and the 15th of April.
So then this rally, the market doesn't have that many days to sort of rise. We have beginning of March, a few days, the market pick up. Then from the 6th to the 8th, there's corrections.
Yeah, it's only really about 4 or 5 weeks when it's going to blast off. But I think that there's some major thing that happens with an announcement that will boost crypto in general. It could be an announcement of somebody assimilating it, some group assimilating it as a rate of exchange. We've talked about this before. I think that March into early April, there's some positive news, but then there's going to be some actual economic issues, or this actual war situation happens in the second half of April. I have seen on my radar that this is a standoff basically with the Ukraine, but there could be some bizarre thing in April, and there could even be a situation that there's a distraction with the Russia. I was a little nervous of how buddy-buddy that Putin and the Chinese leader were at the Olympics. I don't know if anyone ever noticed that either, that there's even some rumoring that the Russian thing is a distraction for the forces to go there, and then there's a move on Taiwan by China. Now, I don't want to put that out there, but April is going to be a weird month, and I think that it is related to warlike activity, which of course will mess up the markets.
We don't want that.
Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to discuss April, May, and the rest of 2022. Welcome back. My guest is SL369, Cryptocurrency Clairvoyant. Hey.
Hi there, Jill. So earlier you said that I want to get clarification about war in April. Is there one?
I don't think that there's going to be. I think that we're looking at consciousness shifts happening rapidly. That's what March is going to bring forth. People are waking up. And, you know, consciousness affects activities on our planet as well as weather and war. So I think we're going to see an evolution of humanity during this time. And this old timeline of, you know, U.S. versus Russia war, the European countries being called into it, it's very reminiscent of old timelines with the Cold War in the 50s and before that World War II. And we're seeing timelines play out for people both individually, collectively, nationally, internationally. It's quite a fascinating time here right now. And so to bring crypto back in, I think crypto is sort of relevant very much because we're going from a third dimensional matrix consciousness to a fifth dimensional consciousness, which is really about love, potentiality, possibility. And crypto makes possibility and potentiality available for those who will cash out at the end of March or early April when it hits a peak.
Okay, that's very nice. So, can you tell the audience again when is like the good day to take profits?
Well, again,
in March or April.
Okay, I always urge that people use their own intuition, but I'm looking strictly at astrological activity. And I would say that the end of March, it kind of reminds me of like what went on in October and November leading up to the eclipse of November 19th. I had suggested people take their profits 3 weeks ahead just to make sure that they were able to access them. And so that made the 28th of October a very, very powerful day with high SHIBA profits. And so if we track out 3 weeks before the next eclipse, April 30th, that would take us to like, again, April 8th through the 15th, although I think to be on the side of maybe caution, or again, people have to use their own intuition. I think the end of March, we might reach there's probably going to be a very high cycle between, let's say, the 26th of March and April 8th. So that would be the ideal time period. And again, as we get closer, we start seeing the indicators.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's give people some day to prepare because in November, a lot of people didn't take profit. And so I think a lot of people learned this time.
You know, we were talking off mic, SL, and I've noticed that this year is very different for cryptocurrency than preceding years. And I have a theory about that. I think because there's more people invested in it, but the astrology is kind of unusual this year. So we have the down cycle in January. We're going to have another down cycle in May. May's a pretty malefic month. Usually that tra-la, it's May, the lusty month of May is great for romance, but it won't be so good for crypto because we're going to have Mercury retrograde and it's an eclipse month, so especially the first half of May. So that should be a crash time.
So are we talking about like
It
whole
could be
month
a
of
crash.
crash? A whole month of crash?
The crash will definitely be in the early part of May. It will take a while to get like breathe life back in. And then, it will start coming back up. But the summer feels kind of slow. Like there's not a huge rally, but it won't be crashing. Okay. Kind of like last summer, except for think about a month different than what happened last year. So think about last year, 2021, and the crash cycles, and then just move it forward about a month. Okay. And so remember that the summer of 2021, it took a long time to rally back. And it was really not, it was only until October. Well, this year, I think it's going to be the end of September and October. And then it won't be so good at the end of October. It's going to start crashing. But then I also noticed we have a third cycle when things could come back and rally. And that's late November and early December. Because we're out of the eclipse windows where that was smack in the middle of it this past year, 2021. So there's 3 boom times, basically, is what I'm trying to say. We see March into early April. We'll see late September into early October. And then again, we have a bit of a tough time there in late October through most of November. But the very end of November and early December could be a major rally. So that's 3 times in 2022 as opposed to 2 times in previous years.
So based on those 3 major rally, do you know which one is the biggest rally?
That's a great question because we don't have the intel or information of what's going to go down in May that's looks to be a little malefic, second half of April and May, which I think will affect things going forward. I do think it could be a world event or it's some kind of global economic event that will then trickle into crypto. Although this is also the time when crypto's born, or in this case, reborn, and we're going to see it like break away from some of these collective challenges. And as I've always said in the last year or so, I see this summer there's regulations or there's some kind of restrictive activity taken against crypto by governments.
Yeah, the government have been on our mind, sort of on the back of our head, a lot of for the past couple weeks, because Biden's want to pass an executive order about cryptocurrency. They want to regulate. So there's a lot of...
I think that's what's going to happen in May, to be quite honest, but they're not going to be able to implement it to the extent they think they can.
So when do you think they will implement?
Well, there'll be a lot more talk about it in May. And don't forget, like we're going to see mortgage rates and other interest rates go way up too. So there's going to be all kinds of economy cluster dots going on just to try to revive some things. And so crypto will be dragged along with that. But as I've told you too before that, there's certain coins that are going to be independent enough that they are breakaways, that they're breakthroughs and breakaways. And as I've traditionally said for the past year, SHIBA's one of those. And SHIBA's the Husky that's leading the sled of crypto starting in March. I feel like SHIBA's going to start really coming and rallying up here at the end of February into March.
Okay, that's awesome. So that's a preview about SHIBA. We go back to SHIBA. I can provide some prediction as well. So let's talk about May. When the community hear the word crash, like we want to know a lot of detail. So you said that in May there's a Mercury retrograde and then eclipse. So can you provide some date?
Yeah, so here are the red flag dates in May. As I said, April 30th is a solar eclipse. So that you want to be really kind of aware of that at least a week before. But, you know, if people are interested in taking out profits, it's probably a good time to do it a couple weeks in advance of the 30th of April. In fact, even up to 3 weeks in advance or more. But we get into May and we got the eclipse fallout, and we have what we call an eclipse window, which is from the 30th of April through the 16th of May. Now, the problem is that we also have a Mercury retrograde thrown into the mix. And so some people are cautious when we have what is called the Mercury retrograde shadow that can be like a week to 10 days before. I don't really work with that as much, although we feel the disturbance in the forest several days before. But what happens is Mercury goes into the sign Gemini on that eclipse day, the 30th, and then it also goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th. So that's a red flag day. So really we're looking at red flag days, the 30th through the 16th, but we can throw that net a little wider and kind of go through, I don't know, more like 10 days more. Mercury, actually the rest of May, because Mercury doesn't go direct until the 3rd of June. So basically May, not as weird as January, but there's going to be a lot of wrenches thrown into the mix and a lot of unexpected information coming to the surface that will implicate crypto and other economic situations. And that's the full moon of May 16th. That is traditionally, it's the sun in Taurus and moon in Scorpio, can traditionally be a setback to financial markets, as is the polar opposite moon that comes, which is in when the sun is in Scorpio and the moon's in Taurus. And we saw that at that last eclipse, which was that eclipse of November 19th, 2021. The sun was in Scorpio, moon in Taurus. So here we have that companion. So, we're going to have some issues coming up financially.
Okay. Then for the crash in May, when is the last day of the crash in May?
I'm not quite sure because the Mercury retrograde complicates it. See, Mercury doesn't go direct until June 4th. So that could be a little bit of I think it could just interfere more with the market coming back.
Okay. Then how about June?
So June, we catch our breath. We come out of the Mercury retrograde and we start coming out of all the Taurian problems with Uranus in Taurus and Mercury in Taurus. The sun has moved out by then, but we start coming into more Gemini energy, and Mercury finally goes back into Gemini without a retrograde on the 14th of June, Flag Day. So I think that mid-June onwards, we're going to be recovering. Not sure how far up. It's going to be a little bit reminiscent of last summer, and then we might have some other restrictions. So June, July, and August, we won't see crash, but we won't see huge, it's going to be very up and down and erratic, okay? And then we get into September, we're going to start seeing some things rally, although we do have, guess what? Another Mercury retrograde in September that comes from the 10th through the 2nd of October. But for some reason, I don't think that's going to be as problematic because it's in Libra. So the markets are going to desperately try to be balancing themselves. And that means that in early October, we're going to see a big rally again. I would say from about the 3rd or 4th through the 23rd of October.
Oh, that's very nice. And then we have a crash on November 8th.
Yeah, that it's around. So throw 2 weeks before that. November 8th is that full moon with the sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus. But we have a Scorpio new moon in late October. And then we have the Scorpio new moon solar eclipse on the 25th of October. So we will, which I think that won't be as problematic as the crash that will happen in November. And basically affect it, just being cautious. Probably from about the 20th of October, people should be aware the crash is starting, although it will really go down on the 8th, which guess what is also election day. Dun, dun, dun. And then we will see some rallying maybe toward the end of the month, the 28th of November, and early December could be pretty good, unlike this past year.
So in December, when's the last day for the rally?
Probably, I think it's going to be really good while the sun transits Sagittarius, but then it goes into Capricorn, and we start all the planets clustering in Capricorn. Actually, we have Venus going into Capricorn on the 9th, but we don't have Venus retrograde like we did this past year. So I would say probably we can ride this up through, we could probably ride that through actually Christmas. 21st, 22nd, 23rd, things might shift a little bit.
Shift downward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride going forward in 2022. And I don't know, you can explain this to the listeners a little bit better than I can because you've been a crypto aficionado for a long time. But this is not going to follow a historic trajectory of what's happened before. Do you understand? It's like it's a harder read because it's not going to follow patterns that it's done in previous years. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And what would you attribute that to, SL?
I think this year the market ever crashed a rally. So we just had a major crash last month because we believe that the elite and all of them pull back the train so they can get in at a cheaper rate and their friend can get in. And the rally, they let it run. But then there's always a pullback again. I mean, they don't let it run for months and months.
Right.
There's a
There's
pullback.
manipulation now. It seems quite apparent because it's not going in almost like natural cycles.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that I use astrology to time the crash?
Yeah, there's, sometimes we give credit to the dark side that they have more wisdom than they really do. Usually it's just coming from manipulation and greed and that they don't put that much thought into it. It's just like a plan that gets executed. But, the fact that crypto has been going along, has been following astrology, I'm sure that there are astrologers consulted when major economic moves are done, but it's not as much as people think. I don't think it really is. They haven't caught up. Remember, they're vibrating at a very dense 3-dimensional consciousness, which doesn't include visionary or paradigms of freedom and consciousness like the higher vibrations of astrology. So they would use different systems. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, I see. Yeah, but also for the past, for the past few years, a lot of corporations, a lot of big shots, billionaires, they're not in crypto. So this year, I mean, everyone is in crypto.
Right.
So they're trying to catch up.
Right. And people want to make a lot of money and they will. And there will be these breakaway coins. I'm wondering if you have an idea which are going to be the breakaway coins that people need to look, that are like independent of what's going on and independent of manipulation because there's so many whales.
Yeah, I think Ethereum is one. SHIBA is another one.
What was that first one?
Ethereum.
Ethereum. Okay.
Yeah, Ethereum is one. SHIBA is another one. Polkadot one. Another coin is Elron. They have really good astrology and the natal chart. I don't have it with me right now, but potentially the price go up really high as not quite Ethereum, but 4 figures.
Wow, I haven't been able to get my hands on that chart, but the vibration feels like it's something that's very cutting edge and that they're going to offer something that hasn't been offered before and thus take off. Mm-hmm. I concur that Elron will be one to watch out for. So let's talk about SHIBA, SL. I've been looking at their chart closely and they've just had their breakthrough moment where Pluto has come over the Saturn to remove big obstacles. I mean, that's still going on for the next few weeks. Pluto conjunct the natal Saturn, which has been this existing blockage for SHIBA. And that looks like as we get into March, they're in the free and clear. And they also have been having some nice Jupiter transits. Actually, here in mid-February, Jupiter's harmonizing with their Uranus. So that's a surprise opening and breakthrough. And then Jupiter is going to continue to deliver the goods with Shiva in March as it harmonizes with their natal Jupiter, their natal Pluto, and, remove restrictions, so to speak. So we're going to see SHIBA really taking off here. I mean, making some nice strides in the end of February, but really taking off in March.
I agree with that because for the past maybe 2 weeks, they have been telling me that SHIBA going up, SHIBA going up. So they gave me some price prediction. So for this month and next month, we can definitely see 403 and 404. And then I don't think that SHIBA will lose a zero in March. It could go as high as 406, 7, 8, but is not going to lose a zero in March. I'm not clear if SHIBA will actually rise as high as 408 in March, but they have been telling me that it's going up, going up, going up.
Yes, I can see that. The astrological trajectory looks very good for SHIBA in the coming 6 weeks.
So, hi, Jill. The audience want to know when is a good time to take a profit from SHIBA in either March or April.
Well, right away, what's popping out at me as I look at the astrological calendar and I look at SHIBA's chart and I look back at the astrological calendar, 28th of March is jumping out. 28th, 29th of March. In fact, that week looks good, 28th, 29th, 30th. I mean, SHIBA was really right on point when 3 weeks before the eclipse, it came to its peak. We could probably ride it into early April, but the problem with that is that there's some other astrology that will interfere. So I'm really holding to the end of March, but then again, that might not be enough time, people might say. I just think SHIBA's gonna go really fast, really high, and that's why the end of March, that it would probably be a good time before there's some interference. Yeah, and I'd stay away for sure from, we could probably wedge it out toward that new moon in April, which is the 1st, April Fool's Day, 2nd, 3rd, but it gets a little dicey. Again, the very absolute last I was looking at is the 8th, but I'm looking at the 28th and 29th of March, which is interesting because I remember I was looking at the 28th and 29th of October in 2021, and those ended up being the dates. So I'm kind of looking at the 28th, 29th again.
So, Jill, then SHIBA, the last day to take profit is, I think, the 28th of March.
28th, 29th of March.
Okay. Then SHIBA will go down with the rest of the market. How about when will it recover, in April or May? Would it be in April or May?
I think that it's going to be affected by that overall crash, but SHIBA's, see, this is the thing. When we're looking at like the market, we go with Bitcoin. But SHIBA's an indie. It's like an indie film, it's doing its own thing. We've talked about this before. So at this point, I can't track that. I haven't gotten insight into that. I just feel like, even though it may seem premature to some people, I think that for this particular time period that we're looking at of spring of 2022, that would be a time when someone could probably walk away and feel really good about their SHIBA bag.
The spring would be like, are you talking about March 28th, walk away?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned. When we come back, SL is going to share her hot tips for coins to watch out for. Welcome back to that part of the show you've been waiting for, the hot tips from SL369. What you got, SL?
So before I jump into that, during off-air, Jill and I talked. The good time to take profit for SHIBA is March 28th until April 4th.
Right. There will be a plateau when that will still be the height from the 28th through 4/4. 28th of March through 4/4. That week, very important.
So some of the coins that people should keep an eye on, or if they don't have it already, they should get some. First one is SHIBA. The reason SHIBA is that for the past maybe 2 weeks, in particular last few days as well, they have been telling me that SHIBA going up, SHIBA going up. And they gave me the price. Right now, SHIBA is trading at 4029. So they show me 4007 and then 4008. Like I said earlier, I don't think SHIBA will lose a 0 in March because I haven't got the intel. If I do, I will do a show with Lisa, like on Lisa, and then I will share that. Or else I can post on a Telegram. The second coin that people want to look into is OASIS. I think Rose OASIS. And then the next one is GALA, SANDBOX, DOGE. The last one is ZILLIQA. So all these coins should do well in March.
And why is that?
So SHIBA, because the fundamental, I don't know, but the astrology. OASIS is really a good coin that has a lot going on. It's backed by a lot of VC. GALA is a gaming coin. SANDBOX is a gaming coin. Dogecoin, there's a rumor Elon want to have Starlink accept Doge as a payment. ZILLIQA, they will. I don't know if they metaverse will have gone live yet or not, but they show us a preview of the metaverse. So my spirit guide showed me that a price prediction of 29 cents for ZILLIQA. Not sure if it will come to pass in April because we only have like 4 weeks for the rally, but we can see ZILLIQA will do well this year.
Well, thank you, SL. Great information. SHIBA, OASIS, GALA, SANDBOX, DOGE, and ZILLIQA. Keep your eye out for that. My guest has been SL369 Cryptocurrency Clairvoyant. Make sure that you share this episode with all your crypto friends. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cosmic Scene with my guest, SL369 Cryptocurrency Clairvoyant. Make sure that you download, subscribe, share, and give us a 5-star review. This is Cosmic Scene, sending healing crypto vibrations through the quantum field.